A poem often described as about the decay of rural life. I think that really what we're looking at here is a poem about the entropy of life itself. Entropy about the normalization of systems towards nothingness, if you will, at least towards stillness. And what we have here from Robert Frost is a poem that is maybe seemingly on the surface, maybe seemingly if you were not focused in on it, seems sort of trivial. But I think what we have here is something much deeper than triviality. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for another video, which will be in two playlists here on the channel. Number one being the Poetry Discussion playlist, a playlist now over 700 videos strong. So I'm very proud about that. And number two being the Robert Frost playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated to the grumpy old man himself. The poem in question today is known as Directive by Robert Frost, and I want you to pay attention to the first word you see, the title, Directive, and the last word you will see. The poem itself reads as such. Back out of all this now, too much for us. Back in a time made simple by loss of detail, burned, dissolved, and broken off like graveyard marble sculpture in the weather. There is a house that is no more a house, upon a farm that is no more a farm, and in a town that is no more a town. The road there, if you'll let a guide direct you, who only has at heart your getting lost, may seem as if it should have been a quarry. Great monolithic knees, the former town long since gave up pretense of keeping covered. And there's a story in a book about it. Besides the wear of iron wagon wheels, the ledges show lines ruled southeast, northwest. The chisel work of an enormous glacier that braced his feet against the Arctic pole. You must not mind a certain coolness from him still said to haunt this side of Panther Mountain. Nor need you mind the serial ordeal of being watched from 40 cellar holes, as if by eye pairs out of 40 firkins. As for the woods, excitement over you that sends light rustle rushes to their leaves. Charge that to upstart in experience. Where were they all not 20 years ago? They think too much of having shaded out. A few old pecker-fretted apple trees make yourself up a cheering song of how someone's road home from work this once was, who may be just ahead of you on foot, on creaking with a buggy load of grain. The height of the adventure is the height of country where two village cultures faded into each other. Both of them are lost. And if you're lost enough to find yourself by now, pull in your ladder road behind you and put a sign up, closed to all but me. Then make yourself at home. The only field now left's no bigger than a harness gall. First, there's the children's house of make-believe, some shattered dishes underneath a pine. The playthings in the playhouse of the children weep for what little things could make them glad. Then for the house that is no more a house, but only a belly-laced cellar hole, now slowly closing like a dent in dough. This was no playhouse, but a house in earnest, your destination and your destinies. A brook that was the water of the house, cold as a spring, and yet so near its source, too lofty and original to rage. We know the valley streams that, when aroused, will leave their tatters hung on barb and thorn. I have kept each in the instep arch of an old cedar at the waterside, a broken drinking goblet like the Grail, under a spell so the wrong ones can't find it, so can't get saved. As St. Mark says, they mustn't. I stole the goblet from the children's playhouse. Here are your waters and your watering place. Drink and be whole again beyond confusion. So that first word, directive, the last word, confusion. I think it is understandable if you find yourself at the conclusion of this poem confused. I think that there are things that Robert Frost does along the way which are intentionally confusing. A lot of these line breaks are halting to the extreme. If we go back up here to the very opening statement, back out of all this now, too much for us. What? Back out of all this now, too much for us. What a halting statement. Back in a time made simple by loss of detail, burned, dissolved, and broken off, like graveyard marble sculpture in the weather. Graveyard marble sculpture in the weather. These are phrases not meant to give you an easy journey through this poem. I think that what we're doing here is okay. We're on a journey with our speaker through a bit of an abandoned, through an abandoned sort of town, to an abandoned house, an abandoned water source, and finally abandoned toys. That goblet that we find, which is abandoned, there's a toy goblet. It is there to represent someone's playtime, someone's dreams, those dreams themselves abandoned, the living quarters themselves abandoned, the entire society itself abandoned. Frost here is making a commentary on the fact that, look, society is hard. Culture is hard. Living is hard. If you do not upkeep it, it will not be upkept. It will all crumble. It has all crumbled. Robert Frost is really good at writing stories of abandonment, at writing stories of loneliness, at writing stories of crumble. You see the idea of crumbling many times in Robert Frost. The Mending Wall. I can't remember the name of the poem off the top of my head, but there's one about I think it's a mailman going through basically an abandoned type of town. This is very prevalent to Frost. This idea of abandonment, this idea of collapse, this idea of failure. And I think that it is oftentimes sort of written off, the way that much of the commentary around this poem is written off, as rural decay. But I think that's basically because Robert Frost was himself a rural writer. I think that Robert Frost is not making commentary on rural decay as much as societal decay, and the only wrapping that he can put around that idea is that which he knows, which is predominantly rurality. And this poem in particular might not strike you as all that compelling? Certainly, it doesn't me. I'm not a very big fan of this poem. I think that the best way to approach this poem is through the lens of Frost as a writer and that idea of collapse in Frost. What does this represent? What does this mean? Frost himself, no stranger to tragedy in his own life. And I think that largely what is being commented on by Frost through this idea of sort of entropy, through this idea of collapse, through this idea of a return to stasis, is that even daily living under the right circumstance can be absolutely crushing. Tragedy in your personal life, and you look around and everyone else is going about the day like nothing's wrong, but your world is collapsing. What a monumental effort it is not to give in. Because, as we see through poems like this, that collapse is the natural state. That collapse is what happens when you do not put in monumental effort. And it's a very, very slow road, or quick road, pardon me. We see here what all of these places were just 20 years ago, our speaker says. It's a very fast road from society to nothingness. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.